I was starting to say that there's been a recent explosion of interest and even awe concerning ChatGPT and its cousins, and the explosion shows how important communication between humans and computers is to AI. And in fact, the development of the whole field is being driven by this interest in natural language processing. It looks like Alan Turing basically had it right, that when computers can finally hold really realistic conversations with people, it will be time to consider them truly intelligent. And this is, in fact, what's unfolding right now in front of our eyes and ears, a lot sooner than we expected it would. So it's not any mystery that MPI is attending seriously to natural language processing, to conversations between humans and computers. So we'll now take a tour of the group's initial efforts. I'm trying to advance here. Linguistic communication goes a whole lot further than mere text. Speech conveys all sorts of information beyond just the words, and communication goes beyond only language, extending to face, to gestures, and to the body. But if that's the case, shouldn't machines that are aspiring to intelligence also aspire to human-level communication? The answer is yes. Then they should be expressive too, in speech, in face, and in body. And this expressiveness is tough to represent in handwritten programs. It's a job for learning-based programs, in other words, for AI. Now, you've seen this diagram before. Marina was just showing it. MPI is aiming for a modular approach to building AI systems in general and natural language processing systems in particular. The AI modules are abbreviated as AIMs. Their configurations for this or that use case are called Artificial Intelligence Frameworks, AIFs. And to be standardized, the AIMs, the modules, need well-defined inputs and outputs so that the modules, the blocks, can be offered by anybody who respects those specifications. And here's a sample artificial intelligence framework. Should be usable in most conversational situations. And as you see, the emotional factor is the one in focus here. So we look at the blocks that compose this here. Speech comes in at the left. There's a speech recognition module. The recognized text comes out, goes to language understanding, which produces not only the text and not only the meaning in a certain symbolic representation, but also something about the emotion in labels that I'll be showing you. That's one input to an emotional fusion module that gives a fused or overall emotion. And putting that together with the text and the meaning symbolism, we can do dialogue processing. That produces text that the machine will be responding with. Speech synthesis turns it into output speech, taking account of the emotion that was recognized in the original speaker and adding emotion to the synthetic speech. There's also a chance for synchronization with lip animation. So this is, now we're going to, after that warm-up, we're ready to look at 7 or 8 more frameworks and their modules. This one is a question and answering setup. And this time the focus is on multimodal situations in which humans are discussing objects with a computer, for instance, a computer that instructs on fixing cars. The person should be able to point to things. The computer should know which things are referred to in the questions. Language has a way of indicating reference like that, but pointing should also be enabled. And rather than go through the blocks of the diagram, showing how the questioning and answering is handled, I'm going to drop out of this, and I'm going to show you a presentation due to, let's see, due to our colleagues at Etri.
And the second feature is that you can attach an image from your local folder. And I'm going to attach a file, an image file of an Eiffel Tower. And I'm going to ask, what is the city in this picture? And it correctly says Paris. And for the note, you can see in the log here that it says text is Paris. I'm also going to ask for the same picture, that what is the time in this picture. And it correctly identifies that it is a sunset here. And I'm going to attach a photo of a little girl, and I'm going to ask, who is this? Is that a little girl? And I'm also going to ask, how many people are there in this picture? And it correctly says 1. And for the last picture, I'm going to attach banana, and I'm going to ask, what is this? It says bananas, so it correctly identifies again.
There's some difference between that preliminary demonstration and the diagram in that it's still photos rather than video that's in use, and the pointing is accomplished by loading the photos. But in principle, it's the same under the skin. Hold on a second, please. I will restart my... Okay, now we get to a series of configurations that are especially dear to my heart because they relate to speech translation, which has been my specialty for 3 decades plus. We'll give you a demo again, this time due to my company, Speech Morphing. Here's a quick demo of one possible implementation of MPI's AI framework for one-to-one speech translation. Again, that's a combination of AI modules whose interfaces have been standardized, so the modules produced by different vendors can be swapped in and out. The relevant modules here are speech recognition, text translation, and text-to-speech. I'll be using the TalkMundo speech-to-speech translation app by Speech Morphing Incorporated. TalkMundo has a mode called ToTalk that enables an in-person dialogue between 2 people. I've set the speaker's languages to English and Mexican Spanish. Now I'll hit the English speaker's mic button to begin speaking. I'll hit it again when I'm done to trigger translation, although if I pause long enough, the translation would happen automatically. Good afternoon, everyone.
Buenas tardes a todos.
I hope that everyone is enjoying this conference.
Espero que todos disfruten de esta conferencia.
But I have language, so let's try German. Good afternoon, everyone. Had to save some time. This is showing the one-to-many speech translation setup, in which we're doing not only Spanish and German, but Mandarin as well. Framework. And then each party would see and hear the original input, whether it was in English or some other language, in their own languages. Good afternoon, everyone.
大家下午好。
Guten Tag allerseits. Buenas tardes a todos.
And with some more work, each party could be enabled to respond in his or her native language so that all others would see and hear in theirs. But you get the idea. I hope you do. Now back at slide 109.
Mark, can you
Yes.
please collaborate in staying within the time?
Yes, I've got 6.5 minutes left.
Yeah, let's say 7.
Let's say 7. I'm taking a deep breath and here we go. I will not, because of the limited time, give you a blow-by-blow description of the modules in conversation about a scene. But I think you are getting the idea of how the pieces can be put together. Just a moment. Let's go on to avatar-based video conferencing is a configuration in which several people are in a video conference together. each with her own avatar. And accompanying them is a virtual secretary, this time representing not a person, but a computer participant. So here's a breakout showing how that virtual secretary is put together. The modules that make her or him run. Verta, depending on the gender or the lack of it. The secretary's main job is to mediate and summarize the meeting's points. So the output on the right shows the written summary and her text, voice, and visual representation. And her avatar model might also be useful for other downstream modules that are not shown here. Here's a high-level look at the main modules useful for communication with a connected autonomous vehicle, CAV. Notice that the provision of output by radio with other cars, other vehicles, and even pedestrians is provided for. The modules that make it all run are familiar from the other busy slides that we already showed, but you might notice that some of these modules shown here have red borders. Those are composite modules. They could be exploded to show entire configurations of lower level modules. And now we get to another favorite of mine, personal status. We've already mentioned that personal status is a cover term for emotion, like angry or sad, cognitive state, like surprised or interested, and social attitudes, like polite or arrogant. And all of these can be shown through several modalities, like through the voice, the face, or the body language. And each modality can be analyzed in terms of descriptors or features, like prosody or vocal tension for the voice, or arm position for body language, and so on. Now, MPI has the need to standardize the treatment of these personal status elements. So we have very bravely presented sets of labels for each of these factors or elements, complete with their categories. Those are listed as nouns like anger, or adjectives that are quite general like angry, or specific adjectives that might be subcategories of angry like furious. And for each of these labels, we provide glosses, semantics. This is an ambitious undertaking. Here you see the data structure, which I'll run past. And here you see a couple of examples of the cognitive states like attention or belief or interest, and their associated adjectives at the more general and more specific level. I said that there were glosses for all these things, so let's look at what's a good one here. Astounded is an easy one to understand. It's a high degree of the surprised. And surprise down here is the cognitive state due to violation of expectation. Now, if you don't like these glosses or choice of labels, that's okay, because they can never be complete or precise. So we have provided standard ways for you to modify these sets or substitute your own. Now that you've seen the cognitive state labels and what goes with them, you can see the basic emotional labels and what goes with them. We won't take the time to show you. There's also basic social attitudes like acceptance, agreement, aggression, approval. It was a fascinating job to compile these labels, because we wound up with more than 100 of them in their categories and with their semantic glosses, as you see here. Now, racing to the end, you'd expect that there would be a special purpose module configuration for extracting personal status from the various modalities like speech and gestures, etc., the face, and so on. And here is that set of modules and the configuration that includes them. And once we've got the personal status, we would want to display the personal status. And here's how we do it. Well, this tour has introduced some of the modules and configurations that MPI hopes can partly standardize and make sense of these increasingly crucial conversational exchanges, so that it won't be necessary for each application to reinvent every wheel. And what about large language models, these LLMs that you're hearing about? Well, they will play their parts within many of the modules that you've just seen. So I thank you for your attention, and I'm finished 30 seconds early, Leonard.